Ladies and gentlemen,
welcome to the show. It's Movie Wire time. Oh, the Movie Wire. Bring the firing squad. Bill, Justin. Give the finger or laugh or smile. It's time to find out. No more waiting. So here we go. The Sultan of Cinema. The gumshoe of review. Here is Justin Henson. Let's start the show. Let's go.
welcome to the Movie Wire.
And welcome to this week's edition of the Movie Wire. I'm your host, Justin Henson, and welcome to the show. We've got a big show this week with 3 new movies to review, with all 3 playing in theaters right now. This week on the show, he robbed 45 McDonald's, escaped from prison, lived in Toys R Us for 6 months, and that's not even the craziest part. Channing Tatum stars in Roofman. Wrong Place, Wrong Crime. Emma Thompson and Judy Greer star in Dead of Winter. And finally, trust his instincts, Indy the dog stars as a good boy in Good Boy. We got a lot to cover this week, so let's jump right in. Ready for my verdict? Let's get into it.
Out of the windows, a roar and a burst of flame. The Movie Wire Podcast. We need people like me.
The Wire.
And here we go.
I don't wanna grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. They got a million toys at Toys R Us that I can play with. I don't wanna
A charismatic criminal, while on the run from the police, hides on the roof of a toy store. There he adopts a new identity and becomes involved with an employee, beginning a relationship as unlikely as it is risky. Channing Tatum stars in Roofman.
I don't wanna grow up, 'cause baby, if I did, I couldn't be a Toys R Us kid.
We all like going back in time and imagining how things could have gone differently. Like, what if I made different choices? Would I have ended up here?
It's been 6 months and still no leads on the whereabouts of the escaped convict known as the Roofman.
I was never very good at life.
Good morning, team.
Oh, no. Don't be scared. Kind of like I was not good at hurting people.
Dwayne, get your coat.
I don't have one.
Are you serious?
Here.
It was a beautiful day.
But I was good at seeing things.
Sun beat down.
Details.
I had the radio on.
Systems and routines.
Yeah, running down a
A manhunt tonight for an escaped prisoner.
Find a safe place to hide for a few months.
He's a very smart individual, super intelligent.
You're just the man I want to see.
You like peanut M&Ms, right?
We're missing a lot. You have any idea why?
I just thought, they gotta be hiding somewhere.
I wanted to invite you to my toy drive.
We sell toys here, we don't give them away.
Wow.
I would like to introduce you to someone who made a generous toy donation.
That's so kind of you.
So, John, I understand you work for the government.
So it's a little classified, so.
I never knew we had an intelligence unit here in Charlotte.
Oh, are you law enforcement?
Yes, I am.
Wow, that's amazing.
Police believe the Roofman may still be in the area.
What the? Oh my God!
You got your passport? You got to leave tonight.
Why can't I just stay? I'll just lay low.
I need you to really think about who you talk to. You just look like this all the time?
Tell me what's going on. Right now.
Who do you want to be, Jeff?
I need you to take the ink bomb out.
If I do that, it'll blow up.
Not if you do it quick.
Oops.
A true story about a man that escapes from jail only to be held up hiding in a Toys R Us store. where he has free reign to wander the store at night. You add in some recognizable faces such as Channing Tatum, Kirsten Dunst, Peter Dinklage, and Ben Mendelsohn. Now, even though this is a true story about a man that held up and robbed businesses at gunpoint, there's a lot of fun to be had with this material. We can tell the film wants to have some fun with it, but really holds itself back to what it truly wants to be. We have this true story about Jeffrey Manchester, played again here by Tatum, who in 1998 started robbing McDonald locations by entering through the roof until he was caught and arrested at his daughter's birthday party. Roofman addresses Manchester's family and what we would think would be the motivation for the rest of the movie for Jeffrey to do well, or do good if you will, for his 3 children. But then the film just kind of sweeps the family aside and forgets about that, which is one of the many problems we have here with the balance of this absolute mess. About an hour or so in, I begin to think to myself, man, for a guy that's stuck in a toy store, Toys R Us full of video games and fun, this guy in this movie isn't very fun. From the very beginning, we get shots of old school McDonald's, Blockbuster Video, and at the very minimum, I would have hoped for a trip down memory lane or a cheap nostalgia grab. Come on, at least give me that. But sadly, the movie steers away from it because the fun police came in. This is a movie that's scared of doing something other than inserting almost highlights from Manchester's career. As I stated in the beginning, we start off by meeting Manchester's family. That's short-lived. Then it transitions to brief meetings with his friend from the service, Steve, played by Lakeith Stanfield, who is the whole reason for Manchester to hold out in a Toys R Us, is to wait till he gets back from his assignment to get him a new identity. Then we transition to meeting our limited Toys R Us staff, led by a not-so-fun micromanager, Mitch, played by Peter Dinklage, that I will get into in just a second. And finally, we are then introduced to a new family that makes Manchester and the story forget about his other life, and that's with single mother Leia, played by Kirsten Dunst, who is heavy into her church work, and also has 2 kids, Lindsay, played by Lily Collias, and Dee, played by Kennedy Moyer. Leia and Jeffrey build a romantic relationship, and Jeffrey builds a relationship with her children after some added quick conflict of rebellion for Leia dating again. As we go through the motions, we bounce from one family to work to family again. This is where the movie really just feels like highlights and not the greatest hits for sure, but mere highlights of this event, because we don't spend much time with anybody and everybody we can feel deserved more. This includes Mitch, the manager, again played by Dinklage, where we are given examples, brief examples, of why we shouldn't like him. But the script by our director, Derek Cianfrance, and Kirk Gunn give him just subtle, simplistic dialogue of actions to do to tell the audience he's kind of a dick. After having the fun setting of toys that are being waved at us like looking at your Christmas presents a week before Christmas, eagerly waiting for the movie to do something with it, and presenting characters that should potentially scream personality, my mind started to wander. I started comparing this movie or films like it, like 1991's Career Opportunities, where Frank Whaley gets a job as an overnight janitor in a Target, where our writer there, John Hughes, knew how to take advantage of the setting to bring the fun factor. And as we compare settings and how the movie is executed, Hughes knew how to make Target fun, and that was in the 90s. Target seemed more fun than Toys R Us. How can that be? Then we have Mitch the manager, whom our writers again bring no personality to the role, that at moments I wanted something more. Anything. I almost wanted a manager Bob that John Ritter brought to the table in Bad Santa. Between our setting and characters, nothing ever steers off course of being merely surface level to complete boredom that just drags the movie on. And when a movie doesn't really engage in anything interesting and we don't feel the stakes that Jeffrey is facing, that's when we start to see holes that demand answers. For example, why do we only see 7 to 8 employees working at this Toys R Us? It's the morning of Black Friday or Black Friday weekend, and guess what? This Toys R Us in the 90s only has 7 or 8 associates. And why is there never any customers in this Toys R Us? I mean, they really didn't start to get traffic to clients until the 2000s, but come on! Especially during a holiday month. And we rarely have any cars in the parking lot. And then we look at the situational aspects of it. Is there a reason that nobody looked to the cameras to see why $10,000 in games was missing for a month? Or do you even know that the cameras were shut off? And I get it. I'm not questioning that this didn't happen, since it did. But I would have loved to see an explanation for Manager Mitch on why some basic common sense wasn't used. But for a runtime of over 2 hours, this film needed a manager to manage the time spent on what it focused on. because everything that is interesting or could be interesting is merely just glossed over in an attempt to bring some heart by the time we reach the climax. Roofman is one of those films that just seems to suck the fun on what could have been an entertaining film if they took the mere idea and topic and had some fun with it. But our writer-director, Derek Cianfrance, acts more like the fun police than a director and writer. The movie just drags on and on with no idea of what it wants to be and what it wants to tell the audience or what the audience wants to feel, other than pure boredom, where I found myself squinting my eyes to browse the aisles to see if I could at least spot some recognizable toys. And I think I saw some X-Men action figures, so that was pretty cool. But of course, Cianfrance is so boring. All the close-ups of the toys he uses are mainly overstuffed animals. Now, this is the type of guy that buys a toy, takes the toy out of the box, and puts some socks in it, then wraps it up for his kids on Christmas. How do you suck the fun out of a movie that centers around Toys R Us? But in his defense, I will give him one thing. I will give the movie one thing. Tatum does take a bat to tickle me Elmo, and that was okay. That was pretty cool. My advice: watch old YouTube videos of old Toys R Us toy runs for a couple hours, and you will have more fun with that. I'm giving Roofman 2 stars.
I still wanna be a Toys R Us kid.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
Now, before we get into the rest of the show, make sure you check out my reviews for movies that just became available to rent, buy, or stream now.
Now available on video cassette.
It was supposed to be fun, but then 2 pregnant women later in the threesome. And surprise, it's getting threesome stars. I mean 3 stars. Friday is about to get freaky. Again, in Freakier Friday. The threesome was freakier. Freakier Friday received 1.5 stars. The case that ended it all in The Conjuring Last Rites, which this is the Avengers Endgame for Conjuring fans that satisfies receiving 3 stars. Greatness demands sacrifice in Him, in which that must mean everybody that went to go see him vomits greatness for sacrificing their time for one of the worst movies of the year, receiving 0.5 star. Prepare for launch and welcome to the family in the Fantastic Four, that even with flaws was a visual spectacle that didn't just focus on our characters looking cool, but the movie in its entirety, receiving 3 stars. No colors are identified, no conversations are recorded, no phone records are kept. Now speak clearly, and when you are finished, say, go ahead. In relay, that in my review I relayed 2 stars. Go ahead. Welcome to the New West in Americana that received 2 stars. 3 stars for Sydney Sweeney's Jeans. Last night at 2:17 a.m., every child star from Mrs. Gandy's class woke up, got out of bed, went downstairs, opened the front door, walked into the dark, and never came back. In one of the best horror movies of the year, in Weapons, that received 3.5 stars. The Truth is Messy Business and Ethan Cohen's Honey Don't, that had a great premise and an idea of tone, but made me say by the end, Ethan Cohen, please honey don't, receiving 2.5 stars. Justice Makes Him Wet, in the remake to the Leslie Nielsen classic, The Naked Gun, which rapid fires gags with only a 50% success, receiving 2.5 stars. Hutch is back and nobody ruins his vacation in Nobody 2, which is an unnecessary sequel, but still a lot of fun, seeing 2 unexpected action stars like Christopher Lloyd fire a machine gun and Bob Odenkirk kick some ass, receiving 3 stars. Karma is a killer, and I know what you did last summer. Overacted, recycle, and brings nothing new to the table except 1.5 stars. Love is hard and breakups are harder, especially when an unnatural force has a plan to keep them together, in Together, which will make your date stop holding your hand in the movie, but worth it, receiving 3 stars. Brad Pitt goes vroom vroom in F1 the movie. That was an adrenaline run, especially given the runtime, and it's a feast for the senses, receiving 3.5 stars. Double the bad and double the fun. I don't know about that one in The Bad Guys 2, which was just too much, receiving 2.5 stars. The Universe Called, the wrong number, in Disney Pixar's Elio, which is a much better animated movie than The Bad Guys 2, receiving 3.5 stars. And another movie that's still not as good as Elio, Smurf it up and get the search party started in Smurfs, which Smurf and sucked, receiving 2 stars. And finally, every choice, every mission has led to this in Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, which was a clever way to close out the series, but will end with the same feeling as the rest of just blending together, but still a fun in the moment ride, receiving 3 stars. Make sure you check out those reviews of my previous episode, and while you do, don't forget to hit follow or subscribe, and please don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Now, before I get into the last set of reviews, there is a podcast that not only is part of my weekly listening routine, but I have also joined them in some fantastic movie discussions, and coming soon, you will be able to hear me on their show talk about Tron Ares. And I'm talking about Josh and Alex over the Talking Smac Podcast. Make sure you listen and subscribe. The link to that show will be in the description of this episode. But let's hear from Josh and Alex over the Talking Smac Podcast now.
What's up, nerds? This is Josh from Talking Smac, where we talk superheroes, movies, animation, comics, and so much more. Every week, we break down the latest blockbuster movies, TV shows, revisit comic events. We even talk to comic creators like Kyle Higgins, Melissa Flores, and Matt Groom. And don't miss out on our Superhero Showdown episodes, where we debate your suggestions on who would win in a fight, or maybe they might become friends. So join in on the conversation with me, Josh, and my co-host Alex every Wednesday on your podcatcher of choice. Look for our yellow and red icon, and we'll see you soon, Smackheads.
A loyal dog moves to a secluded family home with his owner, only to discover supernatural forces lurking in the shadows. As dark entities threaten his human companion, the brave pup must fight to protect the one he loves most in Good Boy.
To boil it down to the origin story as succinctly as possible, I was watching Poltergeist for probably the 1,000th time, and if you remember, that film begins with the golden retriever going through the house, clearly sensing that something supernatural is afoot before anybody else has. That was kind of the origin of this all, that, like, could you tell a story entirely from a dog's perspective? As an animal lover and someone who likes very difficult production challenges, that was really appealing to me. And then as a genre storyteller, figuring out how to have a story that would rely on like a more realistic, canine character who just has the limitations of a household pet, doesn't have a voice, no superpowers, and still tell this kind of compelling, suspenseful story.
Now, Good Boy could have gone down one of 2 roads, one being where it completely uses this idea or gimmick to create some truly chilling moments using our main canine, Indy. Or 2, the gimmick run thin and just becomes a cheap idea shot on a low budget. And Good Boy deserves a treat for being such a good movie. At just over an hour runtime, the movie doesn't feel short and it doesn't overstay its welcome. The pacing feels just right to have us sucked into this story. Now, even though the movie is shot from the perspective of Indy the dog, we do get human interactions that are never truly in full frame to amplify the perspective of Indy. This leaves us with 2 things: a sense of mystery being told through our writer-director Ben Leonberg's direction, and it amplifies the perspective of Indy to show how vulnerable he is in his environment. Leonberg's direction truly builds a visual stake as the movie progresses without relying on situational scenes with our entity or ghost, if you will, and it actually complements the attempt at the old creepy, creaky farmhouse. That at times does set us up for almost too familiar territory on what's to come. But the way Indy the dog is inserted into these scenes is what makes it feel new and unpredictable. Now, this is what took me by surprise. Good Boy is a film of complete interpretation, especially of what our entity is, our ghost is. Our writers, Alex Cannon and Ben Leonberg, don't feel the need to hold your hand to explain what exactly is our entity. And honestly, we don't need to know, because that even though the runtime is a little over an hour, this movie demands conversation surrounding the film, including meanings or metaphor for what our entity could represent. Conversation surrounding the film, including meanings or metaphor for what our entity could represent, will lead to an additional hour, if not more, of conversation or thought as you leave the theater. And I'm going to tread carefully not to give too much of the movie away, but this is a movie so hard to talk about without discussing a little bit of the meaning and what Cannon and Leonberg's true intent here when it comes to the entity of what it represents. It could be as simple as life's uncertainty. For we see Indy's owner Todd, played by Shane Jensen, in a doctor's office taking in the news of him being really sick, where we can guess that our entity is just death that is lurking around Todd. But we also get Todd watching videos of his grandfather, who was also sick before Todd moved into his house, which might represent our entity being a bigger player of causing sickness or possessing, if you will. There are numerous scenes we get to support both ideas, if not many other ideas. But right when I thought I'm sticking to my guns on what this entity is, Leonberg inserts something like a creepy cave in the basement that points to maybe Todd's grandfather unleashed something that he shouldn't be unleashed. And every time we think we know what our filmmakers are going to tell us or where this movie's going to go, we get a different scene contradicting what we originally thought. There are so many examples to give, but due to being a spoiler-free show, I've already said too much, and I will just leave it there. But the movie is, again, completely up for interpretation. As viewers do rewatches, I'm sure thoughts will change, opinions will change, but the bottom line here is that at a first-time watch, nobody is right or wrong on what to take from our entity or the film. But the theme here is always present, from loss, mourning, and moving on. Good boy teeters from old spooky ghost story to emotional horror, using our love for pets as a driver to bounce us back and forth with these feelings, with the tense moments never outshining what the stakes are trying to build, where eventually our fear isn't necessarily what's gonna happen, especially to our dog Indy, but rather our fear is how we are going to feel by the time the credits roll. During the runtime, we are mentally preparing for something to happen to our dog Indy, where if it's not something physical, then it will be emotional, and that's where the film does a fantastic job at keeping audiences on their toes and dangling the stakes in front of the viewer to attack us from the inside and not the outside using situational formulas. Now, holistically, the film works, it just does. But where I think Leonberg and Cannon should have considered is actually shooting the film without spoken dialogue and take us into a full perspective of Indy. Because when our characters do speak, and if it is in the perspective of Indy, then Indy does have a big vocabulary of understanding of the English language, with performances that feel like they are copy-pasted and delivered in a performance that feels like that out of a video game cutscene. But maybe that's how animals hear us, where we all sound like cutscenes from Grand Theft Auto. Here, what I think really would have taken this movie up a notch is giving us perspectives of just spoken words that only Indy understands. This would have taken the stakes up a notch of vulnerability that we see brilliantly in Leonberg's shots. Having our character just say words that dogs know, and that being amplified in the movie, and no other dialogue such as good boy, sit, stay, no. Using simplistic dialogue, simple words during pivotal scenes this would have helped build the tension and utilize the surrounding environment. But I'm not going to fault our filmmakers for the decision that they made, because all in all, it works fine. Just the delivery seemed too elementary, especially when we get to the climax, where we should have gotten an exclamation mark ending to really put a stamp on the meaning of the film that I know viewers are expecting. But again, I'm not going to say that the ending contradicts a holistic feeling of the movie, because it does leave us in thought. Maybe a little disappointed that we don't have some clarity, but the more I thought about the ending days after my viewing, the more I actually did appreciate it. That it never does give clarity on what it wanted to be, but rather what the viewer wanted it to be. But by the end, it's hard not to walk away from this film wanting to pop through that movie theater screen and give Indy a big hug and say, good boy. Good Boy is one of those movies that I thirst for and wish more of in theaters, which goes to my point that I say over and over again, year over year. More money, more problems with film today. You can make a movie with a low to modest budget, and it will be better than the $200 million blockbusters. And the primary difference is that I will remember a film like this and moments here versus moments in a movie like Mission Impossible years down the road. This is a prime example for filmmakers to have an idea and have an idea of how to present it. Doesn't have to be a perfect idea, but one's creativity will do the rest when it comes time to figure out the how. And Good Boy had an idea and it figured out the how by going straight to the emotional jugular. I'm giving Good Boy 3 stars. A woman traveling alone through snowbound northern Minnesota interrupts the kidnapping of a teenage girl. Hours from the nearest town with no phone service, she realizes that she is the young girl's only hope. Emma Thompson and Judy Greer star in Dead of Winter.
Carl had an unusual request. He wanted his ashes to be scattered up north.
Try that again, you're dead.
Hello? Anyone out there? It's an emergency. There's been a kidnapping. Anyone? Hello? Oh, hey there.
What are you doing up here?
Just a little fishing.
By yourself?
Yeah. Say, you wouldn't happen to know where a Lake Hilda is, would you?
Yeah. Just back over the hill here.
Okay. Well, stay warm.
What did she want?
I gave her directions to the lake.
I need you to stop being so nice to people. You hurt. I'm not leaving you. What are we gonna do? We keep going. Simple as that. We have to make this work. Why are you doing this?
Here is a survival thriller that feels both relentless and intimate, and even at times touching. Built around one of Emma Thomas's strongest performances in years and challenges her range, the film transcends into multiple genres and taking us out of the cliche thriller. This is more than a cold weather action picture. It's a study in grief, loss, resilience, and unlikely heroism. Now, this is a thriller with a duo of ladies that amplify not only the thrills, but the stakes. The performances that Thompson and Greer bring to the table make this seem not just like another survival thriller that bangs on the scenery or characters running in the woods, running from the threat, hiding, shooting, and being placed in situations where we feel we know the outcome. Our characters here add depth to their performances, especially Emma Thompson, who plays Barb. Barb is a new widow who goes on a trip to honor her late husband, who encounters a kidnapping plot by Purple and Camo, played by Judy, Greer, and Mark Mancata, in which she knows that she is the only hope to save Leia, our kidnapped girl played by Laurel Marsden. Barb isn't just a character running, hiding, or trying to stop a duo of bad guys, but she is also battling her own grief and at times using that as a driver to do the right thing. But even when we take grief as a driver, the things that motivate us can also be our downfall. Our downfall of questioning ourselves or stopping us in our tracks. Dead of Winter is a very vulnerable movie with how this is outputted, especially with our character Barb and even our two villains. What makes Dead of Winter feel different from all the other movies like this is the fact from our wrong place and wrong time Barbara and our two kidnappers. The difference here is that they both have death and motivation. Barb has a normality about her with dealing with an internal conflict of loss, and our two kidnappers hold a moral question and even a fear of loss over our heads that I will leave you to discover. Our writers Dalton Lee and Nicholas Jacobson Larson add some emotional spice to this screenplay to ensure we just don't have characters running from each other in the woods, but make it more about an equal part emotional story and survival story that intertwines survival in different layers. We do have moments of predictable play here where we do think we know what the outcome is going to be. But with formulas like this, we can accept it if it's executed well. It's more about what you're going to do with these characters and how they're going to react in the situation to, more importantly, make it absolutely believable. And this is what separates Dead of Winter, is that we see that here. There's a human element added to our characters where it's like a natural human instinct to help or save based on love, sympathy, or the human will to never want to see suffering. Emma Thompson is absolutely engaging here, as she normally is, where we can have a character and performance like this and it can go really over the top based on the focus of the danger element, the panic element, or be inconsistent based on the situation that our character really is. But Thompson really just feels like a local small town older lady named Barb, where even in a stressful situation, she has a charm about her, and she even takes the screenplay to give some sweetness of humor to it. Now, realistically, at times, Dead of Winter can get caught up in its own cliche, where humor, heart, and stakes aren't always present, and we get the feeling of just another thriller, where we can see our director, Brian Kirk, having trouble trying to balance transitions to the next scene, where it feels like a progression versus pivot to something else. Kirk tends to find trouble in balancing or transitioning to back up our character's performances or character's journey, or even actions from scene to scene. We don't get a consistent capture of the pure emotional stake in his shots. It's not that it's a bad direction, but it's very basic based on what the screenplay demands and the performances and the ending result demand. But where he does get it right is with the help of cinematographer Christopher Ross, where the absolute beautiful scenic shots really are engaging. It takes us into a new world. The environment really does take us into a character in itself, where it never feels overpowering to the characters, where we only care about the setting, but how our characters interact with this beautiful setting. But there are moments where Kirk could have utilized this environment in his benefit with his direction, instead of banking on just moments like, for example, a frozen lake that we can see the result coming a mile away. And as Kirk takes us through this story in his direction, and as we lead up to the climax of Dead of Winter, it's full of moments that is driven by our screenplay and performances, to the point we kind of ignore what Kirk is presenting in his direction. But with the exception of some beautiful shots of the scenery, the direction here doesn't really add anything to the table, but just at times feels like it's holding the movie back from its true potential. It's like that one guy in the back of the crowd that's just giving suggestions, but nobody's really listening. Dead of Winter is an effective thriller that will keep you engaged with performances and the emotional stakes it tackles, to the point we can forgive the cliche moments, the predictable moments, and an ending that does feel like it's an emotional fit, but satisfaction-wise feels like a letdown. But to its credit, holistically, the movie flies by as a thriller should, except this thriller will be memorable in one's head due to the fantastic performances. So, based on the performances and the depth to our characters and the execution of the performances with the depth of our characters, I'm giving Dead of Winter 3 stars. And that's a cut on this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I want to thank you for listening and thank you for your support. You can also show support by following me on Instagram, Blue Sky, X, Thread, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Letterboxd at Movie Wire Show. And please don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you haven't yet checked out the Cult-Worthy Cinema Podcast and the Movie Wire's crossover show, Back to the Balcony, make sure you do. Again, the link of that show will be in the description of this episode. Until next week, do me a favor. Make sure you stay for after the credits to show the respect to those that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making a feature film, and support your local movie theaters.
Thank you for bringing me to the movies.
Let the credits roll. We say farewell. Join us next time. We'll have more tales to tell.